up, and welcome back, everyone. This is episode, I want to say 13. I'm double checking. It is episode 13. Look at me. What a lucky guess. Of the Dunks Movie Corner pod. If you're new, welcome. If you're not new, welcome back. This is, again, almost a companion podcast to the Movie Bros podcast, which I do with my brother Hayden. That gets posted weekly as well. Folks, I know I'm like 3.5 days late. Life got busy. It just kind of happened. I did watch a fair bit of movies, so I'm not going to talk fast. I don't have work to run off to, so this isn't going to be hopefully 15 minutes. So I want to give you as much meaty content as possible. So buckle up, sit back, enjoy, me quickly ramble more or less about movies that I watched this week, shows I watched. Again, usually it's movies. That's, if you're new, that's what this is. Usually it's just a couple minutes per movie. What I thought, what I liked, what I didn't like, if I would recommend it, anything like that. If you have suggestions on movies I should be watching, let me know. You can also reach out on Instagram at Dunks Movie Corner Pod. You also obviously found this on Spotify, so you can check out the other episodes. And yeah, that's kind of more or less what this is. I am your host, Duncan. If you wanted to check out the podcast I other referenced, that's the Movie Bros with my brother Hayden. That's also on Instagram and Spotify. That one is, I think, a little bit more of a better conversation. We just got done recording our conversation and discussion about the Iron Claw, which was really good. We talk about, something a little more serious like that. We talk about something light like the Meg or Rango. So it's kind of all over the board. I would highly recommend checking that out. But if you just wanted a quick recap of the week, that's what you're here for. With that, I figure I just kind of get into it. I started off this week by watching Sneakers. If you've never heard of this, well, I hadn't either. It randomly popped up, I think, on a suggestion somewhere. It might have been Instagram, it might have been Letterboxd. Either way, this is 1992. It's like a espionage, hacking, heisty. It's definitely of the time. If you watch any of this, all the like technology that they use, you're like, oof. Some of this is kind of rough. It's an interesting kind of a amalgamation of a cast. Robert Redford is playing the classic like Robert Redford hero type. There's several people you'd recognize. Ben Kingsley is the bad guy-ish. Dan Aykroyd is in this. Sidney Poitier, David Strathairn, River Phoenix. There's several people in this you're going to recognize, but it is just kind of an odd cast choice. There's a couple funny moments where it's clearly, oh, this is early 90s, and it just does not. That doesn't age very well, I would say. Or there's a bit where Dan Aykroyd, they're talking about like what they want as a reward for this job that they have to do for what they think is the FBI, and he wants like a tricked out Winnebago. Like it's a whole bit. And again, I think this is at a time when a Winnebago had maybe different value to it. But it was fun. I don't think it was great. I probably will not rewatch it. I gave it 3-ish stars, 3.5 if I was being real generous. Yeah, I would say if you've got some time to kill and you have nothing else to watch, I mean, I sought this out. I don't think I would look for it again. If you had like $2 to burn at like a Goodwill or off Amazon for an evening, sure, go for it. From there, I jumped ahead about 30 years to 2024. Yes, this was a new release, or at least a release this year. This movie was The Fall Guy. This was not my first time watching it. This was a rewatch. I saw it with a friend. I think my initial review still stands of like, oh, this was maybe not a great movie, but I had a good time watching it. Yeah, I think the chemistry between the two leads of Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling is very good. There's a couple faults. There's some of the timing towards the middle. Just it kind of drug its feet, and then it really ran almost too quickly in the end. Yeah, overall, I would say the pacing is not what it should be. That's why I think I gave it 3.5 stars and nothing more. but I would recommend this to almost everyone. It's kind of got like that fun idea of a movie where you can kind of turn your brain off and just enjoy it. The stunts are all amazing because again, it's the whole movie is kind of a love letter to stuntmen. That's why it's called. I mean, it's called The Fall Guy. The director used to be a stuntman. It's the behind the scenes and the like credits are all about stunts. It's a fun movie. I would recommend it. I'm glad they made it. I hope they make more movies like this. The director also did Bullet Train. I feel like he makes pretty fun movies, and so I'm curious and I'm looking forward to whatever he decides to make next. So that was the second movie I watched. That was from 2024, and that was Fall Guy. From there, I rewatched Licorice Pizza. It's a weird name. If you don't know what it is, it's Paul Thomas Anderson. He's done several movies that were big hits. He did Phantom Thread that I know won Oscars. He did There Will Be Blood, excuse me. That was it's very well known, very critically acclaimed. Both movies starred, of course, now I can't think of his name. Something Davis. Oh man, it's gonna kill me. And I know those of you listening to this are just probably just gonna, chew me up and spit me out for missing that guy's name. You know who I'm talking about. Either way, that's the director. This was much more of it's a love story that is set in the 70s, and the cinematography, the story, just so many parts of this I really enjoyed. I think there's a certain amount of like the memory of watching it the first time. I watched it at, I think it's called The Beacon. It's in Beacon Hill, Seattle. It's a tiny little one screen in the middle of like this this a tiny little spot. You wouldn't even realize that there's a theater in there. Um, and before the movie started, like they played old style music videos that Paul Thomas Anderson directed because some of the main actors in this are in a band together. They're sisters. Um, I don't know. The whole experience was really nice. It's always kind of saved a spot in my brain, and I think that's why I have a special spot for this movie. But the acting's great, the music's great. I referenced this even in the most recent episode of the Movie Bros with Hayden, where the 70s are kind of not really. I've never really. There's not a ton of music there that I love. I don't like the outfits of the time. I either like 50s, 60s, or like 80s stuff. Either way, I think this actually works really well. Paul Thomas Anderson, I think, does a really good job of not just world building, but making you feel like you're just like part of like a day in the life of whatever the character is. If that's a oilman, if that's a 15-year-old boy in San Bernardino, California, whatever it is, I feel like he makes a world that feels really real, and it doesn't feel overly dramatic. It just feels like this is what's happening. There's several stills in this that I could post that just make me feel. I just make again. This sounds cheesy or anything, but it makes me feel romantic, for lack of a better word. And I like feeling romantic. It makes me feel. I don't know. Maybe again, lack of a better word, makes me feel more human. To believe in those kinds of things, even again, I know it's a movie, and spoiler alert, sometimes that doesn't work out in the movie. Yeah, I would recommend this to most anyone. It's got a really solid reviewing. Overall, I give it 4.5 out of 5. Yes, there are some pacing and things like that I would probably adjust for timing wise. The music, the girls that are in the band, they're a whole. I mean, they are a successful music group. If you've never heard of them, they're called Haim or Haim. I never know how to spell it or say it. Excuse me. It's Haim. It's 3 sisters that play together. They're lots of fun if you don't know them. I would highly recommend checking them out. And that was Licorice Pizza. That's from 2021, so it's a few years ago. And I saw that with a lady friend at the time, and I don't know, just the whole experience. People really discredit, I think, the from start to finish, from like door to door of going to a movie theater, whether it be a multiplex like an AMC or a Regal, or a one-off like Big Picture in Issaquah, or the Beacon in Beacon Hill, or like the Egyptian in Ballard, or I think it's called the Grand in Tacoma. There's tons of spots. I mean, if you're in my area, great. If you're somewhere else in the country or world, whatever. But like those one-off movie theaters, or like one of those bigger multiplexes, just the movie theater going experience is part of the movie, and I think people discount it, and they really shouldn't. Either way, I'm sorry, I got to get off that high horse, because from 2021, I would jump back in time to 2014, and I finally watched Gone Girl. Holy shit. I know I am, literally 10 years late to the party, but yeah, because again, 2014 is 2024. This was so excellent. If you don't know what it is, highly recommend it. I gave it 4.5 out of 5, because I felt, I don't know, I felt uneasy, queasy for giving it a perfect score, because there's no one in this that is like a good person. The main girl, the main guy, I mean, everyone acts in it perfectly, I think, for what it's supposed to be. Even Tyler Perry, like, you know who Tyler Perry is, and he's an actor in this, and he plays it very straight and very well. But Ben Affleck is fantastic. Rosamund Pike is fantastic. There's a couple parts where I had to not watch with Neil Patrick Harris because it was just uncomfortable. Yeah, wow, is this good? In some ways, like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, the cinematography. I mean, if you've seen anything else by David Fincher, he did Fight Club, he did The Killer, which is his little bit newer. I mean, he's done lots of like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. He's done a lot of pretty good, intense movies, and this I don't think is any stranger to that. So I'm glad I saw it. But wow, was that a lot to watch? From Gone Girl, I jumped back in time to 2011, and I watched The Perfect Movie. Now, I'm going to say that again. The Perfect Movie. I've seen this movie many times. I've logged it many times. I've told many people about this. I've watched videos dissecting this movie. Like, I don't want to build up too much of a drum roll. And again, if you don't agree with me, well, fuck off. But obviously, you can have your own opinions. You can leave comments and open up a healthy dialogue if you want to have a discussion. But I'm talking about the 2011 masterpiece, which is Drive. And no, I don't think of this as a like ironic thing. I know this has now become almost an ironic thing to like Ryan Gosling in this role, as people are like, "Oh, he's literally me," or whatever the fuck that is, as the Gen Z people are saying. Unfortunately, sorry, I'm not a Gen Zer. Um, I don't know. I'm not really a millennial. I'm somewhere in between. Either way, if you don't know what this is, it's beautifully shot. The music is fantastic. The acting is exquisite. Like, I watched this with someone and I told them, like, before we started, like, hey, I'm not going to be able to, like, I'm going to be zeroed in on this movie. I'm going to be locked in. I'm going to be watching the movie because it's that good, even though I've seen this so many times. I'm going to be watching the movie. It's a getaway driver, but it's also like a romance, but there's also, it's, I don't want to give it away, even though it's been out a while, because I do really hope if you ever are someone who listens to this, that you actually go out and watch it. I have it on Blu-ray. I think you can find it. So I'm sure it's online somewhere. The aesthetics of this, like the title card writing, all parts of this are fantastic. Just saying. I will say I think it was incredibly mismarketed. If you ever watch a trailer or anything for this, you feel like it's going to be like this heart pumping, like driving, heisty, crime, whatever movie. It is so far from that it's almost laughable, and I actually love it because it's not that. And if you look at like the reviews and stuff when it came out, everyone thought it was going to be that, and they hated it. And then it regained a following because of actually, how good it actually is. So I'm glad it found its people, and me being part of that people. Either way, yeah, I think it's a perfect movie. That's a bit of a ramble on Drive, but to me, you can find that somewhere. I would really, really recommend it that you do. The director also has done other things. This was definitely his biggest mainstream movie that most everyone saw. He also did The Neon Demon with, I think her name is Ellie Fanning. He also did Only God Forgives. Only God Forgives is one of those movies where if you watch it for the aesthetics, like they pump up, it's about like a underworld, like fighting ring, crime noir kind of deal in, I think it's Thailand. The aesthetics are amazing. The neon, the music, the visuals are awesome. The story is kind of so-so, but that's one of those ones I would watch just for those kind of reasons. So if you watch Drive and you like it and you want something else, I'd check that. From Drive, which was 2011, however, I jumped a little bit farther back in time to 1991, and I rewatched Point Break. Yes, the one with Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze. Oh boy, there are some lines in this that are rough. This is me quoting the movie, and this is, I think, in the first 5 minutes. There's a quote of young, dumb, and full of cum. No jokes. That's what the line is. And they play, and all this stuff is, there's no jokes. They are playing this very straightforward. Gary Busey is Keanu Reeves' partner, and it's hard to take Gary, because he's almost comic relief in this, but he's not really comic relief. Like again, they're this semi-serious cop duo that are looking for these bank robbers. It's just a weird pairing. That's a weird choice to bring him in. I don't know if he was never like the guy. So it's odd that they brought Gary Busey. Like even I don't know, it's just even his name. This seems ridiculous. And also Keanu Reeves' main character, where his name is Johnny Utah. Ridiculous. However, Bodhi, which is, or Bodhisattva, which is Patrick Swayze. I mean, if I saw this movie at a formative time when it came out in 1991, fuck yeah, would I want to go learn how to surf. So I mean, I think it works for some levels for sure. But I think the duo of Keanu Reeves, his acting style, I think work for some movies, and I think they are just rough to watch in others. And he's gotten to the point now where I don't think he even really needs to act. He's Keanu Reeves. That's just what people, I think, are hiring him to be. He doesn't really play characters. Even back then, I don't see him playing a character in this. It's just him being a not very good actor, but he already had star power, I think, by now. Either way, would I recommend this? I don't know. I think I would recommend it as like a goof. Like if you wanted to sit down with some friends and watch this with like make a drinking game out of it or something. I give it 2 out of 5. It's not a great movie. It's not a horrible movie. There are plenty of moments where I think you could chuckle with friends with, but I don't think it's winning any Oscars. From there, I rewatched The Iron Claw. This was from 2023, so I jumped ahead again about 30 years or so. This was last year. I've seen this before. If you know it, I don't know if I really want to explain it, but I rewatched this for the Movie Bros podcast, which we just recorded the episode where we talk about it. So if you want a actual in-depth conversation, Hayden and I spent about 40 minutes talking about this, and then another 20 to 25 bantering about other shit in our lives. I think it's going to be a good episode once we edit it and clean it up a little bit, but we'll post that, I think, in a week or so. I usually edit these pretty fast and post them because it's just me talking, and well, that's a little bit easier than having a conversation you need to cut through. Either way, The Iron Claw, cinematically, even the open, again, this is all stuff I've already talked about with Hayden, so I'd touch there for more. Like the opening shot, the whole movie, that's going to actually have cinematography with a purpose. Like every single shot is chosen. It's not going through the motions. It's not, we need people to see him do this, so let's just put a shot in of him doing this. Like everything is there for a reason. The lighting is amazing. there's a lack of soundtrack for a reason, because so much more of the stuff hits home because you're not almost distracted by the buildup or rising or falling of music. It's just, this is what's happening. Zac Efron is fantastic, and I think this is his first chance of an actual, like, serious role with good writing that he gets to shine in as an actor, and I'm actually really glad. I'm not saying I'm like a big Zac Efron stan. I mean, I think everyone knew him from High School Musical, but otherwise, I kind of checked out on his career. I didn't really care at all. But this really, I don't know, just brought him to a forefront. I was like, oh, he can act, and he can commit to roles, and he can put in the time and the effort, and like, it sold it for me because he is the protagonist in this. Like, it's about him and his brothers being wrestlers, and their dad's expectations and his dreams that he's forcing on them, and it's all based on a true story. A lot of it is, it's set in the 70s. Yeah, again, touch more on our other episode on this, but it's really, really good. It might be a perfect movie. It may not be my favorite movie, but I think it might be a perfect movie. From there, I ended my week again. I'm using quote unquote a week in a loose term because now I'm 3 days over a week. So some of these would have been from next week, but I'm going to say fuck it. They're going to be part of this week. I ended the week. Me and my housemates watched The Platform 2. This is a Spanish, from Spain, not Mexico, film that was on Netflix. For some reason, we all decided to watch the first one, and the first one was kind of not, it was almost comically bad, but it was like good enough where we were like, sure, we'll all sit down and like sit through the second one, even if it's garbage. And the second one was much better than the first one. The second one had a lot more, like, for like context, the first one was much more of a horror movie. This one had a little bit more like, this is a social experiment to the extreme, which I think was a little bit more interesting. There were themes of almost religion to this one. That being said, both the ending of the second one and the first one, fucking dog shit endings. Like, I don't know if that's just the Spanish thing to do. Literally all four of us were like, oh, that was just a bad ending. Like, that was not something that we forced each other to choose. That was all of us unanimously, bleh. That was all of us saying that in unison. Granted, obviously, this just came out, I think, a couple days ago, so you can watch this and form your own opinions. It's on Netflix. Check it out. And I don't know if that's a great way to end a week on a semi-sour note. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. There's been worse movies, but there's definitely been better movies. And that's what I watched this week, folks. I watched, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I watched roughly 8 movies. Again, that's over more than a week, but let's call it quote unquote a week. So on average, I'm almost watching a movie a day. I will admit, some days I don't watch anything, and there are some days where I'll watch 2. Where I just want to have a chill day of not doing anything after. Like, for example, this last weekend I worked back-to-back 12-hour shifts, and so the next day I was like, you know what? I am not leaving my room. I'm not doing shit. I'm just gonna lay in my bed with my dog and watch movies. And that changes from week to week. So yes, some weeks are gonna be lighter, some weeks are gonna be heavier. It just depends on work and if I've got other stuff going, if I'm going diving, or if, there's a week where I was, off camping with friends, or if I'm throwing a lot of ceramics, or if I'm out taking photography. I'm trying to diversify a little bit. That way I'm not just doing one thing with my time. Uh, the whole jack of all trades, but a master of none is still better than a master of one kind of deal. Either way, that was a bit of a ramble. I apologize. But that is what I watched. What did you watch? Let me know if there's something that you saw this week that you really liked or really disliked, or something I should be watching. And again, check out both this podcast and the Movie Bros. That is usually posted every single week on Sundays. Hayden and I record and then trim it down and adjust. But that one, again, I find is a lot more fun, where it's not just me rambling in your ear. It's at least a conversation. If you're ever interested in being part of the conversation, I've talked with Hayden a little bit about potentially bringing in guest bros, because again, it's the Movie Bros podcast, so maybe bringing a guest bro. That does not inherently mean it has to be a male gendered person. It could be anyone. I think it could be a fun time to just have someone else on the pod, maybe in like special extra episodes, or even for this kind of a podcast where it's just talking about what you watched that week. I'd be super down to kind of collaborate if anyone wanted to have a bit of a conversation. This again is episode 13 of the Dunks Movie Corner pod. You can find me on Instagram at Dunks Movie Corner pod. Obviously, you found this on Spotify. If you could rate 5-star, like, follow, recommend to a friend, spread the word, do all the things, hit the bell notification. You heard the whole spiel from probably every other podcast you ever listened to, but it does help. It does kind of help spread this around. So it doesn't feel like I'm just talking to the same two people every single week, which I'm fine doing that. I just figure it might be nice for it to have a little bit more diversification. With that, I hope everyone has a wonderful whatever week this is for you. If this is, God, what's this, the second week of October? First week of October? Hell if I know. I might try to watch a little bit more spooky stuff since it is the month to be spooky. If you have recommendations on that, obviously reach out. Otherwise, be safe, be well, watch some movies, tell me about them, and I'll catch you all next week.